My first job was as a science show reporter after studying zoology at university. And for years, my executive producers and producers would be talking about the story, and each story's got to have a beginning and a middle and an end. And I would go away and write my script and go, what does that mean? Of course it's got a beginning and a middle and an end, but what's the structure of a story? And nobody in the big TV organizations I was working for could really tell me. So I got out of science writing for a few years and decided to travel around all the genres and learn the different genres of TV writing and steal all the best ideas I could to take them back to documentary. And first I want to talk about why we love stories and why stories work so well. It's because human beings are hardwired to seek them out, and if they don't find stories, they will make them. So it's a good idea to give your audience a story that you've thought about and structured. Otherwise, they're going to make their own up with the random stuff you give them, or the poorly constructed stuff you give them, or they're going to make a story up out of just whatever they can find, because that's how the human brain works. It takes random input and goes, how do I make sense of this? How do I connect causes with effects so that I can predict the future? So that I can go, if I do A, I will get B and I'll feel good. Stories are not a random collection of facts. They're an ordered collection of factual and emotional content. And there are lots of different structures of stories. And audiences are very sophisticated and used to seeing these structures. They just don't know them as structures. But I can tell you a whole bunch of story structures that you're all very, very familiar with. And the first one is the weather report, because it's a list. And there are lots of stories out there that are lists. And in travel and tourism, people use the list a lot. It's like 10 things you must take to Bali. And it works really well, especially the top 10 list, because we're all hanging in for number one. Because you've lit the fuse and your audience is saying, ooh, which one's going to be the big bang? The newspaper headline, or the newspaper story, which is technically we call it the inverted pyramid. It's the big headline, it's the big fact. And then the next bunch of facts are all coming in order of importance, right down to the little tiny details and the fun stuff. But it's the big headline up front. One of my favorite ones is problem and solution structures to stories. The clever guys will use it and make fun of it. The 30 seconds ad, the K-Tel ads, they're all problem and solution. My hair's too shaggy. Well, you need this. That's the problem and solution, or propaganda structure. Problem and solution. My hair's too shaggy. Well, you need this. That's the problem and solution, or propaganda structure. Then in another step of sophistication, we have the story as we know it. Aesop's fables are a great example of that. There's a character who has a goal, and on the way to the goal, they meet obstacles. And in listening to that story, watching that story unfold, we learn there's a moral. If you want A, you must do B. And nowadays, if you're not familiar with all those tools, those structures of storytelling, you're behind a lot of the other players. You've really got to know what the tools of telling a good story are. A, to maintain people's interest, and B, to get your point across clearly and convince them of something and give them a takeaway.